Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Southerner's Northern Garden. So today I'm working on my path here, and as you know, I like natural stone paths in my garden. I have many of them around my garden, and the one out front that you've most likely seen most often is the fountain with the Irish and Scottish moss surrounding it. That Irish and Scottish moss come from Lowe's about 3 years ago. They sell it in 6-packs. Typically, I haven't seen it the past couple of years because I've needed more of it, and I haven't been able to get it, but I have enough of it I could take plugs of it and transition it elsewhere in my garden if I needed it. Now that will only work mostly in part sun. If you have a full sun location like this is going to be for quite a long time, you're going to want something else that spreads. Some people use creeping thyme. I have tried creeping thyme in a path up there next to the fountain that also leads off the sidewalk, and I didn't find that it grew in the way that I wanted it to. It did smell great, but it seemed a little too shaggy and unkept for my taste. And so when I started looking for other options for full sun, I stumbled upon Dwarf Mondo Grass. And this right here is Dwarf Mondo Grass. As you can see, it's very, very tiny. This is as tall as it gets. It's just a 2 to 3 inches max, and it can be easily walked on, stepped on, and it is an evergreen. So I'll put the zones that it will live in below. When you're purchasing Dwarf Mondo Grass, you want to be cognizant of if you're getting the dwarf variety or the regular variety. So many of you know what 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 is, also called monkey grass is what we called it back home in Alabama. But 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 looks very similar to regular Mondo Grass, so it'll get quite large. Dwarf, which I purchased these from Walmart.com from a reseller. The last one I purchased for other parts of my yard came from Amazon. You just have to check throughout the year the availability, and I always seem to find the cheapest one, and these arrived yesterday. So I got 3 flats of 18, and they were roughly $35 a piece, so not terribly expensive. And these are the size containers that it comes in, so they're kind of like plugs. So what I've been doing here behind me, you can see some grass back here already. You can either plant the whole plug, which works and is what I did last time. In this instance, I'm looking to kind of make it a little more natural and stretch what I have. So I'm actually tearing the plugs apart, and sometimes in sets of 3, sometimes in sets of 2. It really depends on how much grass is in each container. Each one has a little more than others. Like this one right here doesn't have quite as much of it as this one. So this one could probably be divided into 3 little plugs. That's what I've been doing here, and there's 2 different methods that I've been using to do that. One is a pro plugger, which I love this in my garden. So if you have a creeping lawn like Kentucky bluegrass, which is what I have, you can actually use this to take plugs of your lawn to repair dead areas, and that Kentucky bluegrass will spread from that plug and fill in. This is a great option also for planting bulbs. I've never planted bulbs with it, but I discovered the other day, although I originally purchased this for my lawn, that it was excellent for the 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲, the big blue 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 that I got in and planted in front of the tater tot arborvitae. So it was actually the same size on the bottom as the 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 plugs I had. So I essentially step on this, it takes this much out of the ground, and then the plug fits right in there perfectly. So there's this little disc that stops it from going any further into the ground. There's an extra disc included if you want to go a little deeper. I keep it on the smaller one, but if you do the deeper one, it'll just go down like another inch or so, depending on what depth you need. So I started out this process using this, and this is what I'm using. You basically just step on it, and it puts a plug in here, and you can continue stepping, and the plugs fill up in the inside. The inside's hollow. And when you're done, you just empty it, and the plugs fall out on the ground wherever you want to dispose of them. So what I've been doing is I created a bunch of holes using that, but also another method, since I'm going to be tearing these into smaller chunks, is to just use a dibber. You've probably heard or seen this on Roots and Refuge. Jess certainly keeps it in her tool belt for planting seeds. I love this as a general garden tool because The dibber, I can stick it in the ground far enough, sink it in my wet soil because it's been raining most of this week, and then move it around a little bit, and it creates kind of like a little cone that I can stick partial plugs of this grass in. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So these plugs are this type of size. They can easily be divided. You just kind of want to find where is a good dividing spot, and then I kind of squeeze the roots like this, and then you just kind of shake. Don't be afraid to be rough. This stuff is really tough and it can be walked on, as I mentioned, so it has a really great root system. So you can see here, and it just pulls right apart. And then I will use the dibber. I'll walk you through this, and then I just plug this into the ground and cover up the roots. Mondo grass is also pretty drought tolerant, and it is a spreading grass. So you'll see that I have it just tucked in between these crevices here, and it looks pretty natural now. But over the next couple years, it'll grow together and just kind of form one green mass in between the cracks of the stone, which is really what I'm looking for. So today, what I'm going to be doing is completing the rest of this path to the point that I can. I'm going to be saving an entire tray of this to complete the path after the fence is installed, because like I mentioned in my last video, I don't want to put a bunch of this close to where they're going to be digging and risk it getting messed up. So let me show you how that works. So first I'm going to demonstrate the Pro Plugger, which is a great option. This typically goes into the ground very easily because the end of the tube is kind of sharp. However, because I have all this mulch here and I'm trying to go through mulch, it's a little more difficult. So I can't just step on it, I kind of have to jump on it. So twist a little bit and then pull up, and you get this nice chunk of soil. You can see it here on the bottom of the camera. And then these basically plugs pile up in the tube, and eventually they get full, and then you just knock them out, and there's your whole plug. So in this instance, a whole one of these will not fit in that size plug. It did for the 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲. It depends on what size plugs you have. So in this instance, this still needs to be divided. So I will come over here, squeeze this a little bit, and stick this entire grass plug in there. And you just dispose of these plugs. If you're repairing your lawn, you can put these in the locations where you pulled up the plugs to move the good grass. Put this where the plug came from, and then the existing grass will grow into this plug as well. So I'm just disposing of these because it's clay, and I'm just filling in with this mulch as I did in my last video around this grass, so there'll be some good organic matter. The other option, as I mentioned, is just to use your dibber, and you just sink it into the ground, move it around a little bit, and then you stick the Mondo grass plug in there. And it's as easy as that. So I started out with a Pro Plugger, and then I realized it's much quicker and I don't have to necessarily dispose of all those plugs if I do it this way. So I've continued using the dibber, and it allows me to put smaller pieces in there that look a little more natural, and vary the size of the grass so that also looks a little more natural. And eventually all of these plugs will grow together, and it'll be just one solid line of green between these stones. So the dibber allows you to get in these tiny holes like this that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. Tuck the grass in there and then move the mulch around it. It's a relatively easy process. Let me show you what I've done so far. So as you can see, I've got the Mondo grass kind of just put in little plugs here and there around this path, and it's looking really great, kind of very natural. I'm not going to bring it all the way out to the edges right here. This is the line of grass. I'm going to keep it up a little bit just so there is some kind of distinction from the lawn. I do not want it growing into the lawn, and I don't want the lawn growing into the flower bed. So when I come through with my weed eater, that shouldn't be a problem. But you see, I just carried it along here in all of these little cracks and crevices, and then it'll look really great really soon. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to end this video and finish up this path. My battery on my camera is going dead because I forgot to charge it, and I'm going to be producing a lot of content this weekend for you. Stick around, like, subscribe, and comment below if you have questions. And remember, in a world full of hate, be a light. Take care, everyone. Bye.